country's fiscal performance is looking good. The press secretary defends himself. Good evening, everyone. I'm Leah Cooper with your JCN News for this Thursday, February 3rd. Minister of Economic Affairs, Senator Michael Halkitis, providing members of the press with details about the country's performance of the first 6 months of the fiscal year, which he says is positive. JCN's Laurencia Smith has more details.
Economic Affairs Minister Senator Michael Halkitis says that the government is cautiously optimistic about the country's economy and its rebound. He made these comments at the Office of the Prime Minister's weekly press briefing on Thursday, while providing details on the performance of the first 6 months of the fiscal year.
That preliminary estimates for the first 6 months, revenues have outpaced projections by approximately $162 million. The rebounding of our economy is largely supported by improvements in stopover arrivals and hotel occupancy rates. Revenue collections totaled $1.137 billion, an increase of $465 million over the same period in the year prior. Aggregate expenditure declined by $1.2 million.
Meantime, Senator Halkitis says that the midterm deficit is estimated at $269 million, a $467 million decrease from the deficit of $736.2 million in the same period of the prior year. He also provided information about the second quarter debt statistics.
The central government's debt stock is now at $10.317 billion at the end of December 2021. Representing an estimated 96.4% of GDP. So we see the percentage having declined slightly since June of 2021. And this reflects both an improvement in GDP and in economic conditions. It also reflects a reduction in the rate of borrowing during the first 6 months of the year as compared to the prior year.
With the debate of the mid-year budget set to take place in the coming weeks in Parliament, the Minister of Economic Affairs could not go into much details about the budget. Here's what he says about the budget that will reflect the government's 6-month report on the fiscal performance.
Which is basically your fiscal performance during the first 6 months. So you won't expect to see much difference between what you will see in this snapshot report and what you see in terms of the mid-year budget, because they both reflect a half-yearly snapshot, so to speak, of your budget, where you are at the half year.
The leader of government to business in the upper chamber says that the government remains focused on getting back to its headroom debt levels to be put in a better position to react to occurrences that are unplanned for. I'm Laurencia Smith for JCN News.
He was on the defensive Thursday morning, and that's press secretary in the office of the Prime Minister, Clint Watson, as he sought to defend himself after a media block ahead of the cabinet meeting at the OPM on Tuesday. Mr. Watson, at the start of the weekly OPM press briefing, explains that this current location, unlike the others, houses a number of different government agencies, which on a daily basis is visited by members of the public, multiple staff members, and local and international visitors. That said, Mr. Watson insists that this creates a logistical challenge for media to camp out at the front door. Hence, this is why the traffic cones were put in place.
It's also a logistical challenge because it's, as you said, the office of Prime Minister, where Prime Minister's vehicles, cabinet ministers, when they arrive, they're pulled up. What happened on Tuesday, where reporters were placed what we normally have, we heard people talk about the orange cones in your stories. It's normally there as a guide and a control so that traffic doesn't access that area where Prime Minister pulls up to park. And so it's a gateway and a control to people accessing the area.
The press secretary explained in a meeting with the media on Tuesday that the decision to place the traffic cones at the entrance of the driveway was made by Royal Bahamas Defense Force officers, adding that, quote, these orange cones are in place every day as part of the RBDF's security practices. Now, that said, those traffic cones were not in place today at the weekly press briefing. Neither were they in place when Jamaican Prime Minister Andrew Holness paid a courtesy call to the Prime Minister, Philip Davis, last Friday. Mr. Watson shares what else was discussed in that meeting on Tuesday.
So what we did was invite reporters upstairs to try and find a plausible solution that we can be able to still allow them to do their jobs, while at the same time preserving the property with its security, as well as those who visit with their privacy and confidentiality. All of these are important. And so we spoke to reporters and explained to them that we would perhaps like to use the room that we're in now, the press room, which is adjacent to the cabinet here. And it will be an opportunity for ministers before they enter the cabinet room to come into the press room based on their request and conduct their interviews here with ministers before they go into the press room. That is to ensure they continue to have access. They have access in a dignified way. They have access in a way that does not compromise or breaches the confidentiality of people accessing services here at the office of the Prime Minister.
Now, in that same meeting, it was also said that, quote, cabinet ministers do not owe reporters an interview, end quote. This was his response after one of the reporters asked why the media wasn't informed of the cabinet meeting's relocation. He added that cabinet is a closed meeting and doesn't include the media. We
are not seeking to take away privilege from reporters. One of the things as press secretary, when I accepted this job, I spoke about very vividly was the importance of ensuring that media under this administration had full access to the administration. And we have worked extremely hard, not only myself, but those who work in our department, to ensure that we are available to the media on a daily basis to get answers to their questions, to get interviews for them if they can't get those interviews, and to make sure that they never have a challenge getting interviews. We are pleased that we've not had complaints about that, which means that it's working. And we seek to now take it further to ensure further access.
A group of 118 Haitian migrants has been returned to their home country in a repatriation exercise. The Bahamas Immigration Department spearheaded the repatriation on Tuesday morning. Immigration officials say at approximately 8:30 a.m., the group consisting of 104 males, 14 females boarded a Bahamas Air chartered flight which departed New Providence bound for Port-au-Prince, Haiti. The Bahamas deportation team escorted the migrants with all COVID-19 protocols strictly observed as the health, welfare, and safety of its officers, law enforcement counterparts, and migrants remain the highest priority in this COVID-19 environment. You're watching JCN News. Stay with us.